Women Taking the Lead, episode 145.
So I believe it's the leader's job to be in alignment, to be very aware, very mindful of what's going on around them and within themselves, and constantly be doing that inner work to become a better leader and to really bring out the best in other people.
Hello, my name is Jody Flynn and welcome to Women Taking the Lead, where we are all about creating blasts of inspiration to help you overcome self-doubt so you can lead with confidence, integrity, and a sense of humor. Head over to womentakingthelead.com to join the community and get the resources to support you on your leadership journey. Now, your future awaits, so let's get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Jessica Williams, who is a career and leadership coach for women and founder of the Superwoman Project, where she is dedicated to helping women declare ownership over their professional lives to achieve more money, success, and joy. Jessica holds a master's degree in strategic communications from the University of Oregon and is a certified Martha Beck life coach and a 200-hour certified yoga instructor. She is also the host of the Superwoman Chronicles, a podcast highlighting the work of extraordinary women around the globe. Jessica, you are my partner in crime. Thank you for being here. But that's just an overview for everyone. So tell us a little bit more about you and your own humble beginnings.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm honored to be your guest today. My humble beginnings, wow, they were very humble indeed. I grew up in North Carolina, in Winston-Salem, and a pretty small town, to a mother and father who did not go to college. My mother, she went and got her associate's degree and was an x-ray tech at the hospital when I was born. And my dad was laid off from working at a brewery and building the house I grew up in. And he actually ended up getting offered a position at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem as the groundskeeper through a series of construction projects that he was working on, carpentry and that sort of thing. And he worked his way up and retired a few years ago as the assistant athletic director. And I shared this because I did not grow up with mentors who went to college. I was not surrounded by, people who were, had been wealthy or successful, in the terms that we tend to think of. My father was at Wake Forest, and he worked there for so long because he wanted me to have a private education, and they paid 90% of my tuition to go there. And so we weren't a wealthy family, but I did get to go to this private school because of my dad's dedication to staying at the university all those years. And when I went to college, I was surrounded by all of these amazing women that had gone to private, high schools and had grown up in different parts of the world. And I was really exposed to a whole new way of living. And growing up, I was just yearning for something. I felt like there was something I was meant to do in the world. And I felt called, and I didn't really know what it was, but I knew I had to get out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I had to travel the world and see and do things. And I could not wait to leave. And so when I graduated from college, literally the day after, I threw all of my stuff in a little 2-seater car and drove west to California. And I had never been further than Tennessee, and I had never been to Los Angeles. I just had this vision of what LA would look like. And I jumped in my car and I drove there with $500 in my pocket and no job. And I went to live with a second cousin I had never met, and to start a new life. And it's been 13 years now that I've been on the West Coast, and it's been quite a journey.
Oh my goodness. That is taking a risk, rolling the dice. That's a point in your life when you're just like, what have I got to lose?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and no one prepares you when you come out of college. No one says to you, here's how to live your life and here's what to expect. And I fell into a pretty deep depression. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I wasn't happy. And I was working a job and selling wine for a wine distributor in Los Angeles and driving all over the city, and I had no friends. I did not feel connected to the place. I felt really overwhelmed. And I went to see a therapist, and she said, "Sweetheart, no wonder you're depressed. Like, you left everything you've known for 22 years and you moved out here where you have nothing, like no connections to this place. And you left this, college experience, and you didn't give yourself any time to grieve. I was 3 weeks out of college and I had a job in a, new city in a new part of the country, which felt like a whole new world to me. And yeah, so super risky. And then I fell in love with a man who lived in San Diego, and he had sailed in his 20s from San Diego to Florida through the Panama Canal in a tiny little boat. And he wanted to sail around the world. And, here I am, I'm super adventurous. And I was like, yes, I want to sail around the world too. And so we sold his little boat. We got married. We bought a bigger boat. And for 4 years, we worked on this sailboat with plans to sail around the world. And in 2007, I quit my job. I was making $100,000 a year selling advertising down in San Diego. And I quit my job, and we pushed off, and we sailed around Southern California the first year. And then the second year, we sailed up into the Pacific Northwest. And things weren't going so well in our marriage. In fact, talk about humble beginnings. I basically ended up in a relationship that just was not healthy for me. And I feel like, Jody, I'm sharing a lot of like personal stuff, but it all kind of explains how I got to where I am today, helping women, because I just didn't have a lot of female mentors growing up. I didn't have women who said, here's a great example, or who demonstrated, what was possible. I had my father saying, you can be anything you want to be. And my mother, behind him going, yeah, you could do this. And that was pretty much it. So,
yeah.
So it was a really long journey for me to get to where I am. So, not a super short story, but to kind of wrap that up, I was living with my ex-husband, and we were living in Port Townsend, Washington, which is this beautiful kind of historic town on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. And it's right at the entry point to the Puget Sound as you come down into Seattle. And it was this really magical place. And we moved off the boat, and we were living in this old Victorian home. And I was going to therapy twice a week, trying to decide whether I wanted to leave my husband. And I was working downtown at this wine shop on Main Street, and I was being paid in wine under the table. And that was literally all I did with my time for like 4 months, because there were no jobs there. And it was right at the beginning of the recession. So I was doing that. I finally decided that it was my path to walk away from the marriage. And I took what they call a karma yoga position, which is the yoga of service. I've always practiced yoga, and I took this position. It's like a volunteer position up at this retreat center in the Pacific Northwest called Hollyhock. And it's on this island called Cortez Island, right outside of Desolation Sound. So just this glorious, again, another magical place. And I lived there for a time and volunteered for room and board, and met some really amazing people from around the world. And one of them said, hey, I know you're kind of starting your life over. I think you would like Portland, Oregon. And Jody, I sat down one day and meditated and had this vision of what I wanted my place to look like, my healing space, the new life that I wanted for myself. And I had this really solid idea. And within 12 hours, I went on Craigslist and found that exact place that I had in my mind in Portland, right off of Hawthorne Boulevard. And I rented the place sight unseen. I had never been to Portland. And I was like, I'm just going to start my life over. And I rented a car and drove from Canada all the way down to this little apartment. I didn't even have a bed to sleep in. I was sleeping on the floor, and I had a dog. And so I was sleeping in her dog bed for like a week. And living off of cardboard boxes. And a friend said to me, she called me, she said, how are you doing? I said, I'm sleeping on the floor and I have no money. And she said, my daughter lives in Portland. I'm sending her your way. And so my now best friend, but at the time I had never met this woman, Julie shows up at my house with a big pickup truck full of mattresses and towels and chairs and everything like you could think of, a shower curtain. Like she just gave me the world to like set me up and to support me. And then I started rebuilding my life. When I moved to Portland, it was 2009. So the recession was, really full force, and Portland was feeling it hard. And I didn't really know how bad it was. I just knew I could not find a job, and I had no car. So I was like riding around Portland on a bike looking for work, and I couldn't even get a job like, making coffee or waiting tables. And here I'd had a job making $100,000 a year 2 years prior, and now nobody would hire me for anything. And so I actually found a job way out in the valley, where the Willamette Valley, where they make wine, at a little tasting room. And I worked there part-time. And then I found a job waiting tables way out in the Columbia Gorge, which is like an hour each way for me to drive, and waiting tables out there. So I was driving all over the city and barely making enough money to like pull my rent. And at one point, I went and stood in line for food stamps because it was hard times. And then a friend of mine said to me, she said, I work at this OBGYN clinic and we need a receptionist. They only pay like $12 or $13 an hour, but it's full-time, benefits and everything. And she got me an interview and they hired me right away. And I ended up working there for 2.5 years. And that was super humbling, but also one of the best things I've ever done for myself, which was carve out a period of time where I had a solid position where all I had to do was go to work and come home at the end of the day. And I didn't have to think about that job. I just had to do it and come home, could pay my bills, live a modest life. And I decided to go get certified as a yoga instructor. So I did that. I went and took myself to Thailand for a month, and meditated my way through Thailand and partied a bit and had some fun. And then I came back and applied for graduate school. And I was kind of all over the place for a couple of years, which makes me, I think, a great career coach because I can like really identify with people. So I ended up going to graduate school and then landed a job during school that really propelled me into a new career. And after 3 years at that position, I left and started my own business. And here we are.
Jessica, as you were going through all the different jobs you had, that was my thought exactly, that, wow, sometimes the best career coaches are the ones who've tried a little bit of everything because they know what works, what doesn't work, how to find jobs, how to, network and find opportunities. And clearly, how to network and find opportunities because there was always something right there.
It's true.
Yeah. It's so great. And so, you're now in a place where, my goodness, you're experiencing so much success. We had a little chat before we hit record, and you were telling me how excited you were with where your business is right now, where it's going, and the potential in it is just tremendous. So, I hear the confidence in your voice, even though, parts of your story, you talk about how you just felt lost and like you were wandering. I didn't know if you wanted to highlight any specific moment where you were playing small. I know there were a couple of them in there, but what I'm specifically interested in is, that a particular one and the lessons you've learned from it.
Yeah, Jody, that's just a great question because this call to play big is such, it's showing up everywhere, and it can feel a little overwhelming. And so oftentimes we don't even know when we're playing small, right? And the best example I can think of is actually a pretty recent example. When I started my own business, I was going through some personal things in my family that were making my daily life really hard because I was grieving some tragic event that had happened. And so I'm trying to do that, trying to launch my business and trying to really understand my audience, my ideal client, what it is I'm actually doing. I was becoming a certified life coach. So I was in the process of just dealing with a lot. And I kind of started going outside of myself and looking for what I call like a magic bullet. Like, can somebody please tell me what to do? Because I have so much going on right now. I just need somebody to tell me how to make my business successful. And so I was kind of looking for what I would call like a magic bullet. And I wanted somebody to just kind of tell me what to do. And this woman down in California, she runs a business program. And she basically was like, I bought into her pitch, which was like, trust me, I'll tell you how to market your business and grow your business, and you'll make $100,000 in the first year. And, and I was like, yes, sign me up. I need somebody to tell me what to do. And the first 6 months of that program, it's like a year-long program where you go through a system for growing your business. And I started to notice a lot of anxiety in that first 6 months, and a lot of times where I felt completely out of alignment for the way I wanted to run my business. And it just got increasingly worse and worse, to the point where I was not enjoying showing up for the conference calls, didn't want to participate in the group anymore. And a friend of mine said, why do you keep pushing yourself to do this? And I said, well, because I've spent $8,000 on this program. And she said, yeah, but do you want to give any more of your power to it? You've already given 8,000. Why are you giving any more of your power? And I was like, you're right. And so I dropped out of that program, and Jody, it transformed everything. Like, I opened up to this whole new experience of my business as an experience of myself in a whole new way, and coming within. And now I have this corner in my room in my office, where I actually will sit and have conversations with my business and ask my business, what does it want to grow? And what does it need to do to express what it's not currently getting to express? And how can I tap in more into my creativity and my inspiration and build this business in a way that's in alignment with my calling? And that really is like the best story I can come up with for how I felt like I was playing small. Like, I really wasn't owning my expertise and my knowledge and trusting myself. And the moment I made that switch, my whole business it has just exploded in terms of alignment, creativity, passion, excitement, clients coming in. So, yeah.
Wow, Jessica. And I think most people can relate to that experience of investing in a training program. Time, money, combination of both. Might not be $8,000, but it was still an investment of time and money. And feeling at the end like you just didn't get what you thought you were going to get out of it. And, good for you for, if it was bothering you that much, it was clearly a program that wasn't right for you, and wasn't going to be right for your business. And I love how you took a different perspective of, what does my business want? What does my business want to express? It had me for a moment, like sitting back on my heels being like, what does my business want? That's a great question. And I'm going to give that more thought later today of, is there something my business wants to be doing out in the world or expressing that I just have not given the opportunity for yet?
Yeah. I mean, it is, when you start looking at it that way, it becomes its own. Okay. So I'm going to back up. Since I've launched my business, I've been telling my friends, it feels like I'm birthing something. Like, literally, I had a friend who was pregnant, and I don't mean to say like having a child is the same as having a business, but in a lot of ways, like, I was creating something, and it felt like a birth for me. And so it becomes its own entity, your business, your career, anything that you're dedicating your time and energy into over a period of that has longevity, that has outcome, that has results you're trying to achieve, right? And if you can think of it as an entity that you can like get behind or fuel in a way, and understand that it has its own life that it has to experience in its own path, I think that was really transformative for me.
I love it. Now, if you could, share with us a time in your journey when you had a wake-up call. Take us back to that moment and share with us the steps you took that led to your success.
My wake-up call. Wow. Well, the one that comes to mind for me, Jody, is I was working at a job that I'd been at for 3 years, and I was in a very prominent kind of position in the community in which I live, well respected in my work and well known for what I was doing. And I was making good money. I mean, really good money. And I had a pretty flexible schedule, a nice office downtown. Um, and I started to have a serious discontent within. And once I walked down the hall and quit my job, I felt like a burst of light like popped open ahead of me, like I was standing in, sunshine and bathed in light. And I felt this sense of relief. And I realized like what it means to come into full alignment, and how we don't have to wait until it gets really bad to come into alignment. Like we don't have to wait until it's like, we're in immense suffering. We can choose to come into alignment and to follow our truth and our calling at any point along our path. And that oftentimes it might be the hardest step we have to take. Like that walking down the hall and quitting my job was terrifying for me. It was so hard because I felt like people were going to look at me and go, "You are stupid. You have like the best job in town." And and yet I had to like work against all of that programming and all of that belief, and really take this risk because that's what I felt called to do. And the moment I did, there was this huge sense of relief.
I can totally relate to that because I've definitely had times in my life when I felt like I was completely on the right path, like going in the right direction. And it's awesome when you have that feeling because everything's easy, right? That exactly the way you talked about it, like the world opened up and everything was lighter and air smelled sweeter. It's so cliche, but that's how you feel in those moments because you have such freedom. But it always came after making a scary decision.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Right? Yeah.
That you can't get there until you decide to let go of something that's holding you back. And that's scary.
Oh, it's so scary. And you know what? That's why a lot of people don't do it because that fear is so strong. And that's why you go, particularly if you're a woman and you're thinking about starting your business, you'll likely start going to conferences where you're, trying to get inspired and surround yourself by people who run their own businesses. And that's why the majority of the talks are about fear and overcoming resistance because it is so powerful.
So true. Oh, and Jessica, I'm curious how you're going to answer this question because everyone has a different leadership style, right? There are key components to leadership, right? You got to have good communication skills. You got to be a good listener. You got to be able to build relationships and network and, just hear people for where they are. But we're all a little bit different because we have different personality styles. We have different strengths and backgrounds. And so we're all going to lead just a little bit differently. So Jessica, how would you describe your leadership style?
That's a great question. When I'm in a position of leadership, which I have been for quite some time, my style is to actually go inward. So I start to notice what I'm feeling in my body regarding the experience that I'm having with my direct reports or the people who are following me. Even the people I'm managing up to. So my previous position, I had a boss. And so you're managing up when you have a boss. And in a way, you're leading. And it's a different kind of leading, but it's a leading. And so my way of approaching leadership is to look within and figure out, where am I holding back? Where am I not in alignment so that I can serve others and remove the obstacles that are getting in their way to success. So I believe that's your job as a leader is to make the people who follow you make their lives easier so they can go out and, be in alignment and fulfill their calling or whatever it is they're there to do in a way that not only serves themselves, but serves everybody else so that they're more whole and more joyful and they inspire others, as a leader. So, and I think that starts from the top. You look at any successful business or any business that is falling apart, and I believe you look to the leader, you look to the top, and you will see where the original problem is, right? Like if you have a business, like if you go into if you go into a business and you get great customer experience, the service is awesome, the product is great, I think you go back to the person at the top. And that's often why it's so good, because it trickles down. Now, if it's a bad experience, if, employees are unhappy, if they're leaving, if there's a lot of turnover, it's often because of something that's out of alignment at the top. So I believe it's the leader's job to be in alignment, to be very aware, very mindful of what's going on around them and within themselves, and constantly be doing that inner work to become a better leader and to really bring out the best in other people.
Amen. And Jessica, what is the biggest leadership or business challenge you're faced with right now?
It's a great question. Jody, we were talking before we got on the call that I'm really interested in building a movement. So my work at the Superwoman Project is about empowering other women in their career and in leadership. And I believe that that's a super important area for us to feel empowered, because as women, we're not often taught how to take care of ourselves. And making money is one of the best ways that we can take care of ourselves, so that we can tend to our kind of basic needs and put a roof over our head and take care of our families. And so I think that our professional lives are so, so important. And I want to create a movement around that really inspires women to take care of themselves in new ways, that doesn't require them to become more masculine, but allows them to be more in their feminine and really tap into kind of their innate talents to make a difference, to take care of themselves and their friends and their family, and to write their own rules for how they can live their professional life.
And this might have the same answer, but on the flip side, what's one thing you're working on right now that you're really excited about?
Well, I'll give you a different answer. I am so excited about my podcast, the Superwoman Chronicles. I launched that podcast earlier this year, and it has just been an amazing journey. It was something I've been wanting to do for several years, and I'm a huge podcast fan. And my podcast hero is Krista Tippett of On Being, and I've been listening to her for 15 years. And so to have my own podcast now, it's felt phenomenal, and to highlight the work of amazing women around the world. I think that that's so important, because we need more mentors. We need to know that there are women out there who are leading, who are great examples of what is possible if we put our minds to it, and we take care of ourselves, and we really do that inner work to overcome those obstacles and barriers in our way.
I love that. I love podcasting. So, and now I'm going to do a quick leadership roundup, and we'll bring this all into a landing. So, what is one practice you have that helps to make you a better leader?
I would say meditation for me. Again, I mentioned this earlier, that for me, I think leadership is about knowing yourself and recognizing your aversions and your attachments and the triggers that you have that are coming up, and why you're behaving in a way that you're behaving, and just learning to get more intimate with yourself. So for me, meditation allows me to do that. It's a space for me to really clear out any of those things and come into alignment and really identify the truth that I feel like I'm constantly trying to seek out.
That's why they call it a practice.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And what is one book that you would recommend to a woman to help her develop her leadership?
So I love this book. It's called The Leadership Challenge by Kuz and Posner. And I love it because they did tons of research on leadership. And it's not just women that they talk about, but just leadership in general. And that book for me was transformative in how to lead others. And they do a lot of research as to what makes a great leader. And they do examples of companies and executives who have become great leaders and those who haven't, so that you can really see how it plays out when you have great leadership at the top.
Nice. going back to what you said earlier about how important it is to have the leader at the top in alignment, in a good place, so they can lead everyone else too.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And Jessica, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell my younger self to stop worrying about everybody else and learn to take care of herself. So, as a younger woman, I wasn't really taught what it meant to take care of myself. And that seems like such a simple phrase, but for me, it's such a powerful one, because to really take care of ourselves means that we need to identify, ways that we can comfort ourselves and soothe ourselves and provide for ourselves. And I was always kind of mentored to look outside of myself for that, to look towards having a boyfriend or a husband or a partner that would, it sounds terrible, that would save me from myself, because I feel like I was running from myself for a long time. And if someone had said to me, "Sweetheart, turn around, go take a bath, go take a nap, go get clear about what's going on within, go to a coach, go to a therapist, go to yoga, like invest in yourself earlier on," I might not have had so many winding paths, but I wouldn't take back my winding paths for anything, because they brought me to where I am so that I can serve other women and help them through their winding paths. But man, taking care of yourself, that has been one of my biggest challenges in life. I am really good at taking care of other people, but taking care of myself is always hard. And you have to take care of yourself first if you want to take care of other people. Otherwise, you have nothing left to give.
Now, Jessica, share with us a success quote or a mantra and why it has meaning for you.
So I always come back to poetry. I'm a big fan of poetry, and there's a couple poems by Rilke that I just love, and one of them says, "Live the questions to the answers that you seek." So oftentimes we're searching for answers, and can you stop and ponder the question with friendly curiosity? I love that one. And then I'm going to kind of sneak in one more other one, and it's also by Rilke, and he says, "Be the mystery at the crossroads of your senses, the meaning discovered there." So be the mystery at the crossroads of your senses, the meaning discovered there. So again, coming back to the question, coming back to the mystery, coming back to the gaps between all the answers, and really becoming intimate with that part of yourself, that part of others, that part of the world, because in that space is where we find greater truth, greater learning, more growth. And as a society, might we collectively become more loving, more generous, more compassionate, more inspired, and solve some of the big problems that are in our way in this life. We have so many big problems and so much fighting. And if we can find solace and comfort and knowledge and truth in the questions and in the gaps between the answers, I think we might actually rise above it all.
Oh, man. And lastly, Jessica, what is the best way for this community to connect with you?
They can find me at superwomanproject.com, where I do life coaching for women in their professional lives, and also the superwomanchronicles.com. That's the URL for my podcast. So there's the two best places. You can also follow me on Twitter at Jessica Joellen, which is my middle name, and I am pretty active on Twitter as well. So.
Love it. And for those of you listening, you can find all the links and resources shared in this episode at womentakingthelead.com. The blog post that accompanies this episode for Jessica is right there. And Jessica, thank you so much for taking the time to inspire and enlighten us. We are all better for having met you.
Thank you, Jody, for having me on the show. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you for joining me on Women Taking the Lead. Are you ready to take the lead in your own life but need some support? Head over to womentakingthelead.com/contact to introduce yourself. And to strengthen you on your leadership journey, I'd like to send you off with a quote from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Again, thank you for joining with me, and here's to your success.